Amen. That ended too soon. Amen. I never did a request before.
Of the truth, I say unto you that this poor widow, that cast in more than they all, for all these have of their abundance cast in unto the offerings of God, but she of her penury has cast in all the living that she had.
Good morning. It is great to be with you this morning. We as a church, the strength of the church, the strength of what we do is the power of of a community working together for a common purpose, for something bigger than itself. The message of the church is not just a civic organization that if we pull all of our resources and we head all in a direction, we can accomplish certain tasks that will be good for the community, for the life of what's going on around us. The mission of the church is really almost a transcendent to rise above where we are, to become more than we are, something that will outlive us, something that is greater than our legacy. And so we, as United Methodists, we partner with one another within our congregation, with our brothers and sisters, to challenge one another, to invite one another, to offer one another hope in the moments of crisis so that we can rise above just the ordinary schedules that we do, the to-do lists, and look at our lives in the mirror and say our lives were about more than what we own or what we accomplished, that we become literally the brothers and sisters, the sons and daughters of God himself. We are the power of we. And in that process, we've begun talking over the last couple of weeks about something that, where are we going in our lives? As we begin sort of a new year together, there are always these questions that we should be asking ourselves. And I think that we've been talking about it over the last couple of weeks, about the power to be made for more. The question for all of us is this idea of, do you feel that you were made for more? Because if you think about it, that is the essence of what the gospel is really all about. That Jesus came into our world to bring light into our world, to say that the grind that you're going through is not what God had intended. That Jesus is inviting us to rise up and to become more than what you have become. To become, move from this idea of outcasts to the saints of a new generation. And so our vision as a church is to be that for our community, that beacon of light, that opportunity of hope to say, it's about more than just what your career is or the kind of house that you live in, that there's more to life than where you are now. And our journey as a disciple is that journey of discovery, of learning about who we are. And so what we did last Sunday is we gave you all a magnet. And if you don't have a magnet, I really want you to get one so that you can be praying for our church. You can be praying for our community. You can be praying for what we're doing, that God will bring about a revival of passion and intensity that really seems to be lagging so much in our generation. That we can begin to pray, and you'll notice that we've got sticky notes that things that we pray for, that we're praying for these pews. I've mentioned this before, that before you come in on Sunday morning, the pew that you're sitting on right now has been prayed for. We pray that God's will in your life would become known to you and that you would respond. So many people come through church and they just kind of go through the motions. It's almost as if they no longer hear. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians says, for people that are not spiritual, they don't understand what we're talking about. They're not ready to receive it yet. And so we're asking God for a breakthrough. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we're talking about is how do we live an upward thinking life in order to get an upward moving life. So often what we do in our lives is we work on our plane. We just try and, rise up a corporate ladder, or we try and move from one house to another. We try and upgrade the possessions, always knowing that at some point, all of that goes back into the box. So we began with a couple of questions. How do we begin to understand what we were made for? That we were made for more. But what does that really mean to us? And so we started with a very simple question. How did I get where I am? Well, the question obviously begs the question, where are you today? And what you find is most people really do not know. We're very bad at taking an honest look at ourselves. Of looking at ourselves in the mirror and seeing an honest appraisal of who you are. This is the thinking part of what we need in our lives. And there's a barrier to that in our own time. To some extent, this is why I might argue that we are living more in the end times than in any other time, simply because your ability to think is diminishing. Things are becoming very noisy. Our long-term thinking is shrinking down to almost nothing. We don't have time anymore for reflection. And so we fail to see that. As a matter of fact, you notice that Jesus did this an awful lot when he came into people's lives. The Gospel of Matthew tells how Nicodemus came to Jesus with a proposal, and Jesus said, Nicodemus, you don't understand your own situation. Nicodemus, you have to be born again. You have to start all over. You don't understand where you are. Or maybe it was the time that Jesus went to the woman at the well, at Jacob's well. And Jesus talked to her about living water, and she said, where can I get this kind of water so I don't have to come back with these stupid buckets all the time? And he said, you don't understand what I'm talking. You don't understand your situation at all. Every one of us should be taking a serious look and say, do I know where I am? Do I understand my current situation? What we do on a Sunday morning is give you space in a very busy and a very hectic life, a moment to reflect on who you are, where you're going, the life that you live, and what its destiny is. Where are you going? If we can ask the question, where am I currently? Well, then the next birth, it's got to cost you something. In 1 Samuel, David wants to make a sacrifice